Welcome, students. Today I am going to teach the first chapter of English textbook for class 10th. The name of the chapter is A Letter to God, written by G.L. Flumes. Students, this is a story of a poor farmer, Lenchu. He writes a letter to God when his crop ruined. He asks for 100 pesos. Does Lencho's letter reach to God? Let's see in the story. The house, the only one in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill. From this height one could see the river and the fields of ripe corn dotted with the flowers that always promised a good harvest. The only thing the earth needed was a downpour or at least a shower. Throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields intimately, had done nothing else but can see the sky toward the northeast. This is a story of a hard-working farmer, Lencho. He lived in a valley. His house was situated, crest means top. His house was situated on the top of a hill. He could see fields from there, he could see river from there. His fields were full of flowers of corn that are the sign of good crops that year. The field only needed a shower. Lencho knew his fields intimately. Intimately means closely. He knew his fields closely so that he was hopeful for rain. Now we are really going to get some water, woman. The woman who was preparing supper replied, Yes, God willing. The older boys were working in the field while the smaller ones were playing near the house until the woman called to them all, Come for dinner. It was during the meal. Here, Lencho said to his wife, Finally, we are going to get rain today. The woman who was preparing supper means the last meal of the day, she replied, Yes, if God's willing. His older boys were working in the field and the smaller ones were playing near the house until the woman called to them for dinner. And during the meal, just as Lencho had predicted, big drops of rain began to fall. In the northeast, huge mountains of clouds could be seen approaching. The air was fresh and sweet. The man went out for no reason than to have the pleasure of feeling the rain on his body. And when he returned, he exclaimed, There aren't raindrops falling from the sky, they are new coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces and the little ones are 5. During the meal, it began to rain. Lencho was overjoyed. He went out to feel the pleasure of the rain. He compared the drops with new coins. Big drops he called 10 cents and little ones are 5 cents. With a satisfied expression, he regarded the fields of ripe corn with its flowers draped in a curtain of rain. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow, and along with the rain, very large hailstones began to fall. These truly did resemble new silver coins. The boys, exposing themselves to the rain, ran out to collect the frozen pearls. But suddenly a strong wind came and large hailstones began to fall. His boys came out to collect them for playing. It hailed for 1 hour. It's really getting bad now, exclaimed the man. I hope it passes quickly. It didn't pass quickly. For an hour the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. The field was white as if covered with salt. But the situation was getting worse. The man exclaimed, I hope it passes quickly. But it was not going to pass very soon. It rained for 1 hour and hailstorm also with them. The garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley filled with The field was white if covered with salt, and due to this reason, the fields was became white. Not a leaf remained on the trees, the corn was totally destroyed, the flowers were gone from the plants. Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. When the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the fields and said to his sons, "A plague of locusts would have left more than this. The hail had has left nothing. This year we will have no corn." That night was a sorrowful one. All our work for nothing. There is no one who can help us. We will all go hungry this year. Here, after this hailstorm, no leaf left on the trees. Corn was destroyed totally, and the flowers were also not over the plants. Lencho became sad after seeing this. When the storm passed, he stood in the middle of his fields and said to his sons, "A plague of locusts." A plague means a group of locusts means a kind of insect. A group of locusts would have left more than this. The hail left nothing for us. This year we will go hungry. We will have no corn. No one is there to help us. We will go hungry. But in the heart of all who lived in that solitary house in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope, from God. Don't be so upset, even though this seems like a total loss. Remember, no one dies of hunger. That's what they say, no one dies of hunger. Their crop was destroyed, but they have one hope in their heart, the help from God. So that they say, no one dies of hunger. All through the night, Lencho thought only of his one hope, the help of God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything, even what is deep in one's conscience. Lencho was an ox of a man, working like an animal in the fields, but still he knew how to write. The following Sunday, at daybreak, he began to write a letter which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. It was nothing less than a letter to God. All through the night, Lencho thought only of one hope, that is, the help of God. He believed that God's eyes saw everything. He would not let them die of hunger. Though he worked hard in his fields, but he knew how to write a letter. The following Sunday, he wrote a letter to God and he himself went to town and placed it in the mail. God, he wrote, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I need 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop come because the hailstorm dash dash dash. He wrote to God on the envelope, put the letter inside, and still troubled went to town. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. He wrote, God, if you don't help me, my family will die with hunger. I need 100 pesos. Kindly send it to me so that I can sow my crop again and live until it grown up. He wrote on the envelope to God and put inside a letter. He went himself to the town and placed it into the mailbox. One of the employees, who was a postman and also helped at the post office, went to his boss, laughing heartily, and showed him the letter to God. Never in his career as a postman had he known that address. One of the employee of the post office, who was a postman, he got the letter of Lenchu. He saw the address on the envelope. Never in his career as a postman he had known that address. The postmaster, a fat, amiable fellow also broke out laughing, but almost immediately he turned serious and, tapping the letter on the desk, commented, "What faith! I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter, starting up a correspondence with God." The postman showed the letter written to God to the postmaster. He was a fat and a good tempered person. He laughed loudly and opened the letter. He was surprised to see the faith of the farmer on the God, and he started corresponding with God.